some of them from the judge as he takes the state to task.
Mr. Ashton, calm down.
Sir.
Okay? Calm down. Sit down for a second.
Yes, sir.
Then this from Casey's attorney.
Were you asked to conduct a paternity test for Lee Anthony, being the potential father of Kaylee Anthony?
You may.
Was it an underhanded move by the defense to get the issue on the record? The judge later allowed the question and answer, which excluded Lee as Kaylee's father. The expert testified that no blood or DNA was found on clothes or Casey's car.
A swab was taken of those items. There was no DNA profile generated from those items.
There's something wrong. I found my daughter's car today, and it smells like there's been a dead body in the damn car.
All right, now that smell has been a key feature of this case. Could the dead body smell have affected actually who is on the jury? So back with me is ABC News correspondent Ashley Banfield and criminal defense attorney Mark Eiglarsh. Joining me in the studio is Richard Gabriel. He was a jury consultant for Casey Anthony's defense team. So Richard, I imagine everything is important when it comes to jury selection. You're just contemplating everything.
Correct.
Everything, all right.
Yeah, everything.
And you, when you consult for the defense, are trying to advise them how to pick people that would be advantageous to their point of view.
Right.
And already, my understanding is that this being a death penalty trial, you've got sort of a biased jury pool generally.
Yes.
So how do you select, or what do you do to sort of pull things back towards the defense?
Well, it's a great effort. In a normal case, you obviously, people don't know much about the case. You're just trying to deselect the people who have any sort of biases that may lean them toward the prosecution. In this case, it's doubly hard. You still have people on this particular jury who actually have heard a tremendous amount about the case and even think that she's probably guilty.
Didn't the judge ask them that, or did the defense people ask them that? No.
Well, they did ask them that. Some of them say, I have the impression that she's guilty, but I can keep an open mind. Well, as we all know from the psychological literature, confirmation bias says we're only looking for stuff that confirms what we already believe.
Are there people on this jury that already have a sense that Casey's guilty?
I'm sure there are.
There are.
I'm sure there are.
Ashley, we're going to talk about the jury in detail, sort of one by one. You've been in the courtroom. Is there anything you could just give us, sort of before we start going to the individuals, sort of an overview of how this jury seems to you?
Yeah, I've been very impressed by them, I have to say. They are very focused. They listen intently. They don't nod off. They don't look around during the critical times. The only time I see them really looking around and wondering what else is going on in the courtroom is during sidebar, and that's fine. They need a mental break at some point. This is really tough slugging. But you know something, I want to add to what you were just talking about. Death qualified does not just mean that you believe in the death penalty. A lot of these jurors said they don't, but they could follow the law and consider it. So I'm not so sure we have an entirely biased jury from the get-go for death.
Well, I was just bringing up some literature I've read, and I think you're confirming that the death penalty juries tend to be more biased towards a conviction.
They do. There's a lot of studies that actually do show that they do it, and what happens is, in the process, when you're death qualifying a jury, you're spending so much time talking about the death qualification that a lot of jurors tend to start feeling, well,
she must be guilty.
There.
Yeah, we're already at the conviction. All right, well, let's take a look at some of these jurors. First, we're starting with juror number 1, and she has some similarities with juror 3 and 5. She is a nurse. She's a retired nurse. 3 and 5 are also either retired nurses or nursing students. In the course of her job, naturally, she would have been around people that were deceased, married, 2 kids. She 65 years old. Mark. There's a lot of talk in this trial about dead bodies. Which side can potentially benefit, say, from 3 nurses present in the juror's box?
Well, I need to talk about this juror in particular. This is the one juror that I take greatest exception to as to why the defense kept her on. She stated that she knows the smell of decomposition. What's going to happen is she's going to serve as an expert in the jury room, whether you like it or not. She's going to say to the others, no. You need to credit the testimony of those who smelled decomposition as opposed to garbage, because there's a huge difference. And that's going to undermine the defense's argument that there was no decomposing in that body in that car. I'm surprised they left her on.
You know what, Mark? Let me, as a physician, sort of talk about that decomposition argument. Because if I were sitting in the jury box, here's how I would respond to it. I would assume it's very vague what they're talking about. I must tell you. I think they're talking about the smell of what's called putrefaction, which is decaying tissue, which, by the way, not just dead humans smell like that. And by the way, not just dead humans smell like that. People with gangrene smell like that.
True.
And
true.
by the way, trash could kind of smell like that. It's not as though it's so unique that you've never smelled anything like it. There are smells like that. They're not dead bodies, though. What?
Drew, let me keep this simple.
Drew,
I've told you this before. Drew, you are too smart. You wouldn't be, not to say that jurors aren't bright, but you have too much expertise. You wouldn't be in that jury room.
I understand that you and Richard would exclude me. Ashley, what do you want to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to tell you that I spoke with the canine officer whose dog jumped in the trunk, and he said the smell hit me at the same time the dog marked it. And I said, is it unique, human decomposition? Is there nothing else out there that smells like it? And he said, pigs smell like that, but nothing else. That was his impression, and that's what he does for a living.
But I will remind you that rotting arms on living humans smell the same way. I mean, there's all kinds of things that do smell like that. But let's go to another juror. Let's go to juror number 2. He is a married father. His mother was a single mom, just like Casey Anthony's. He is married with 2 kids. He's an IT worker. Ashley, could he be sympathetic to Casey, do you think?
You know, I stopped reading the tea leaves long ago after, I think, trial number 250. Just when you think you have somebody who's going to, you know, sort of lean one way, they end up being less inclined to be a foreman. They end up being sort of articulate but refined to certain details that you never thought that they would attach to. And then you find others who just glaze right over things, who are very well educated and didn't sort of get the whole idea. It really is a group process. That's the funny thing about jurors. Very, very much a group process, and some are easily swayable. So while I like to think I know what these statistics and these descriptions mean, I don't.
All right, Ashley, excellent point. I'm gonna pose that to our jury consultant. So what do you say to that? I've got less than a minute to go here.
Absolutely. Ashley's right. I mean, the fact is, what you're doing when you're picking a jury is you're forecasting. You're saying, how does this one particular juror's background issue interact with the evidence? What's going to resonate with them? Just because they're with a single mom, it can go both ways. What you're ultimately looking for, a group who's going to go together, who's going to work together, hopefully in your favor. And that's really what you're looking for. A fair-minded group, a contemplative group, a group that maybe takes a sharp, cynical look at what's being presented and really wants to pore over the evidence themselves. That's ultimately what you're looking for in the jury from both sides.
Richard, thank you. Ashley, thank you. Mark, thank you. I want to tell you, I sat in a juror's box once, and the judge gave me this instruction. I want to know that no one can persuade you. If you had a strong opinion, I thought, I can't say that. And he goes, what do you mean? I go, you're persuading me right now. What do you mean I can't be persuaded? So there is a whole group dynamic to this that's unpredictable. Jurors and the death penalty, more when we come back, and later.
Okay. Can you consider it, sir?
Consider the death penalty?
Yes, sir. No.
Well, as we can see from that, prospective jurors long pause, and as you might imagine to be the case, sentencing someone to death is not an easy decision. I'm back with Richard Gabriel. He was a jury consultant for Casey Anthony's defense team. Also with us are ABC's Ashley Banfield and criminal defense attorney Mark Eiglarsh. Now, I want to just bring something up real quick with you, Richard. We were talking about off the air. I was asking Richard why sort of more medicalized facts aren't coming to this case to sort of make the case that Casey's sick or is a drug addict or abuse survivor, whatever. And you were saying that that just opens up to differing opinions and doesn't usually go very well.
Well, the prosecution doesn't want this because first of all, they want it to be very cold. You know, just calculated, premeditated murder fits into a neat, nice, easy box. They don't want her to be necessarily understandable or even sympathetic in terms of even her lifestyle choices. Defense doesn't necessarily want it because there's characteristics of somebody who might have that, which also indicates, you know, homicidal tendencies or things like that. So it really does cut both ways, and I'm even not sure there's evidence.
Because if somebody were to say to me that, you know, somebody who had babysitters and the grandparents killed the baby because she was so jealous of the grandmother, I would go, all right, come on, what really is going on here? That's nonsense. All right, let's go back to the jurors. Let's take a look at more of the, let's take a look at juror number 7. He's a 41-year-old divorced, excuse me, she is a 41-year-old divorced female. Her father was an attorney. Mark, I want to ask you this. She may know more about the law than the average person. Is that good or bad?
You know, you keep asking these questions. The answer is no one ever knows. You know, the only thing I know after trying over 100 jury trials is it's the individual, not what they do and who their dad is. It's whether, after driving by the crime scene numerous times and seeing someone being arrested, whether they can say to themselves, why are they stripping that innocent person of his liberty? No one ever says that. They think, what did the guilty guy do? So why in court can you come in and agree with the judge that you can presume or believe the defendant is innocent right now. And it's not what they say in reaction to my questions, it's their body language, it's how they say it. A lot of them go, you know, good question, I don't know. And those jurors are gone. I'm looking for ones who can presume or believe that my clients are innocent, and then those are ones that I work with.
Richard, you're shaking your head.
I think that's one of the things that we're looking for is somebody with a father as an attorney absolutely does know the law. The problem with this case is that she's been presumed guilty.
Yeah.
And so we want somebody on the jury who actually knows what the law is and go, no, wait, hey, everybody, even though there's been a lot that's been out there, we got to take it from square one at the beginning of the case.
Can you tell me whether you fought for that particular juror? Is she somebody you advise?
Absolutely. I mean, we want anybody on there. The problem for us in jury selection is we were just trying to eliminate everybody who had predisposed terrible feelings about her in the case, as well as predisposed feelings about the death penalty, automaticity, give it to them right away. So we were left with a pool of jurors, and Mark says, well, why did you leave that juror on? You run out of strikes at some point.
Wow, interesting. Let's look at juror number 10. He's a white male. His sister committed a violent crime against her dad, and she went to prison. I think that's really interesting. Ashley, do you think that particular case and her family history will have an impact on her decision-making?
No, it's entirely possible. And then, again, like I said before, you can never really know. But one thing I definitely notice often is that when Jose Baez, who has such an affable character in the courtroom, when he is friendly or joking or says good morning and smiles to the jurors, they don't smile back. Oftentimes we see them smile back when someone's friendly to them and addresses them personally. I never, ever see them react in a friendly way. I'm not going to read into that, but I do find it unusual.
Yeah, well, let me ask you a couple more questions. Again, you're the one on the ground in the courtroom for us.
I'm watching them like a hawk.
Yeah, I love that. And I want to ask you, too, about the Anthonys and Casey, because, you know, I'm trying to sort of collect data about this to make sense of this whole thing. But let's stay with the jurors. My understanding was they were not taking notes at the beginning. Somebody had mentioned that to me. Is that true? And now are they seeming to get more involved in the facts?
Yeah, the note-taking is actually a sort of a parlor game almost. The first juror, the grandmother, the 65-year-old nurse, almost never takes notes. And in fact, for the first 2 or 3 weeks, I never really saw her taking notes. Slowly but surely, everybody got on board that train, especially when things got tricky and the evidence got boggy, I like to call it, when they get bogged down in the science. Notebooks started coming out a lot more. Now I often look down and I see about 5 or 6 jurors taking notes at a time, and they always have those notebooks, but they can't take them back out of the courtroom. When they leave the courtroom, those notebooks have to go on their chairs. They are not allowed to walk away with them.
Drew, there's one juror we must talk about. Drew, there's one juror we must talk about in the time period.
Please.
Juror number 4. Number 4, who claims that I don't like to sit in judgment of people. I think that was a huge mistake on behalf of Judge Perry to not allow the prosecution to strike her. Your whole job when you're on a jury is to essentially sit in judgment of what somebody did. She has reservations about that. My concern is, even if she believes the prosecution proved this case beyond its exclusion of every reasonable doubt, she'll go back there and think to herself, well, who am I to judge? And that would be fundamentally unfair.
And you know something, I'm going to add to that. I watched her voir dire during the jury selection process. I felt that juror didn't particularly understand what was going on either. She was very uncomfortable. She did not want to be there, not because she wanted out of jury service, because she felt awkward in this predicament. So it's interesting that Mark would bring that up, because I did not think that she would be chosen.
Richard?
Well, it is very difficult. Most times the prosecution don't want these jurors, deeply religious people who don't feel like they can judge, because that is ultimately their job. However, obviously, a lot of jurors do walk into the courtroom and they don't understand the process, especially in a death penalty case, where they're sitting there going, wait a minute, I have to decide whether somebody lives or dies. So they're just struggling with that whole issue.
Let me just tell you about juror number 4, what I know about her. She's an African-American female in her 40s. She has kids, doesn't say here how many. She lives alone, unknown occupation, whatever that means, and she is deeply religious, and it says the defense fought hard to keep her on the jury.
Right. Yeah. We want people with those religious convictions. We want people who are going to struggle. The bottom line here is you want jurors, in a death penalty case especially, who are going to really struggle, who don't have easy answers, who are going to sit there and really pore over the evidence and are going to want to really weigh so heavily what they think about, you know, whether making a decision whether a person lives or dies. It's crucial.
There's no question they wanted this.
One of the jurors was asked if they believe in an eye for an eye, too, which I found really interesting during voir dire. The most religious of them, every single one of them that was chosen said, no, I do not believe in an eye for an eye.
So
No question the defense wanted this
will not
juror.
apply in this courtroom, Mark.
What's that?
Go ahead. I said
This
Hammurabi's
juror-
law will not be applied in this courtroom.
Exactly. This juror, no question, the defense fought for. This could be the potential lone hangout juror. Everyone has to understand that there needs to be a unanimous verdict when it comes to the guilt phase. If 11 people are yelling, she's guilty, they proved it, but this woman's saying, I don't know, who are we to judge? And maybe because her deep religious feelings, she may, again, I'm speculating here, but she may say, you know what? I'm going to embrace those defense arguments a little bit more so I don't have to find her guilty. I'm just saying that that could realistically happen.
Interesting.
Imagine
Ashley, I want to ask you one more thing. 1 second, Ashley. Now, you're new to my program here, and I'm asking all my participants this one question. Guilty or not? Ashley?
You know, that's a huge question because, you know, not guilty does not mean innocent. Let me leave it at that.
All right.
I told you that.
Prove it. Well, that's Mark's position. It's always proven or not proven, and he gives me great uncomfortable feelings in my gut every time he says that.
I
but
think
Ashley,
there's listen, Drew, there is a massive leap that a juror is going to have to make getting over premeditated murder. There was a great argument made yesterday for a directed verdict of acquittal, and there is a very difficult jump and a reasonable doubt that's going to have to be wrestled with these jurors to get to premeditation. They're going to find Casey unpalatable without question. But whether she was the person who did all this is still a very big leap. And I think they're going to wrestle.
Now, Ashley, did she do it or not?
Like I said, ABC News correspondent, I just report the facts, my friend. But thank you for trying.
I do appreciate this panel. Richard, Ashley,
and I'd love
Mark,
to
thank
come
you
back
so
anytime.
much. I will have you back. I guarantee it. Coming up, a look in